Hey guys, this is Locke, and this is my review of Juju. So to start with, I'm going to go through her skills in the codex, and then I'm going to talk about her. In short, I think she actually has an edge over Claire, although they both do kind of similar things, and I'm going to get into the reasons why. So first of all, let's talk about her passive. Protection of spirits. So what this does is it gives her immunity to damage whenever she is disabled. It has a cooldown of 15 seconds, but this can actually go down with cooldown gear. So you can get it down to uh, maybe like 7.5 seconds or something. And you can, I will talk about it later on. There's some interesting things you can do with this. So her first skill is Soul Tracker. What this does is it deals damage to all enemies in a circular range around the target and has a 40% chance of mutating the target. I think it turns them into sheep or something like that. It's pretty probably kind of cool to just watch this happen, I guess, and fight a bunch of sheep. Something you really need to pay attention to is the available distance. So this is 9 meters, whereas Claire and most of the units with like very long range is actually 8. So she has a little bit more range than than the other uh, long range unit, which is Claire. So that already gives her a little bit of an advantage because she can hit first because she has that longer range. Her second skill is very similar to Claire. It's a 100% chance of removing buffs from all enemies within a circular range around the target. And it also deals damage to everybody within that range. It says only to the target, but whenever it says this and has a range mentioned, it actually does damage to everybody in that range. So this is very similar to Claire. Also, she only uses the skill whenever the enemy has um, uh, a buff as well. So she doesn't just waste it when enemies don't have buffs. It's very similar to how Claire's skill is as well. So you can use either of them interchangeably for when you really want to remove a buff. Like for example, some kind of PVE settings where the boss uses some kind of crazy buff and you want to remove it, you can use either Claire or Juju for that, and they will both work very similarly in as far as that buff removal is concerned. Her last skill, Soul Mutation, deals attack to one single target and has a 100% chance of mutating that target. And finally, her ultimate deals damage to enemies in a circular range and a 40% chance of mutating all of those people in that circular range around the target. And all of her skills, if you look, are a available distance of 9 meters. So that's first of all, that's already an advantage over Claire, which is mentioned because she's at 8 meters. Um, so she will most of the time get the edge on Claire if it's a one-on-one between both of them because she's able to attack before Claire does. Um, Now let's talk about her passive. So as you can see, I've got it down to 12 seconds with this gear, and if I equip cooldown gear on her, it'll go down even more. It'll go down to 10 seconds. Um, and this is with 33% skill cooldown decrease. I think if I use like a cooldown pet and maybe even use enchantment scrolls to get her cooldown down even more, it can be something like 7.5 seconds, right? So that's pretty interesting. And something else you can do with that once you get it down to like 7.5 seconds, if you have a very high level of this, maybe at like 14 or 15 seconds, sorry, not 14 or 15 seconds, 14 or 15 skill level, the amount of time that she'll be immune to damage also goes up. So you can almost chain this almost indefinitely as long as you keep getting disabled. And I mean, everybody in an arena uses some kind of disable. They use shock or stun or mutation or something, right? It's very common. So you can potentially keep chaining this, right? Like you can put you can use a cooldown set on her, and you can use one rage accessory, and hopefully with that she will have quite a bit of time where she is just immune to damage. Now there is a lot of people like Ming or Shane or many other units that also remove buffs, so this doesn't give her like like full protection, but I think it's a pretty cool passive. I think it's a pretty nifty passive to have. It doesn't remove the debuff; it just gives her immune to it. So if she's stunned for 5 seconds, she will still be stunned, but she will just be immune. She won't take any more damage while she's stunned for that 5 second period. That's what this does. So it's a little bit different from the Mirage Accessory because the Mirage Accessory actually removes the debuff and then gives immunity. This just flat out gives immunity. As far as her skill goes, so she has, her skill is single target, so it'll mutate. Has 100% chance of mutating the enemy, which is usually the unit in the number one slot. Now you might actually be able to get a little bit of a jump on Shane that's in a number one slot because if she's fast enough and she has a range of 9 meters, whereas Shane has a range of 10 actually. Okay, so Shane might still get the jump on you. If you're really, really fast, you might be able to maybe um, mutate her before she has a chance to kill you because Shane will at least take 2 hits to kill you because the first hit will uh, so if you the first hit will attack you and probably trigger the rage, and if you have like a mirage or something, or a pet that removes CC and you remove the stun, then you might be able to mutate her before she has a chance to follow up with her combo skill and kill you. So you might be able to get the jump on Shane sometimes, but sometimes you might not. Especially if she stuns you and you're not able to get that CC off, then she'll probably follow up with the second attack. So it really depends. But now you at least have a chance against the Shane. Whereas with Claire, you kind of have maybe a similar chance because with Claire, you want to pull Shane away, I guess, right? You want to shackle and pull her away instead of mutating her. Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess it's similar how both of them would function when they're dealing with Shane. Now, I think mutation is a little bit more of a better CC, like a more effective CC than shackle, and the reason for that is because with shackle, which is what Claire does a lot of, they can still attack. They're held in place, but there are a lot of units with quite a long range, and one of the most popular ones is Valder, who when shackled, he will pull enemies towards him and then attack them. So shackle doesn't really prevent him from doing damage. Whereas with mutation, they will be disabled and mutated, and they can't do anything. So this is a bit of a better debuff in my opinion than shackle. Um, and yeah, I mean, so it's like she has all the things she really needs to be an effective PvP unit. Like she has some kind of survivability with her passive, which I think is quite nice. She has buff removal, which is also very important in PvP. And thirdly, she has 2 skills and an ultimate, which all have heavy CC. So those are all the 3 things that I've mentioned before, which are good for PvP units, and she has all of them. So I think she will definitely excel in PvP, and against certain PvE content where the bosses are going to use um, buffs, like for example, the Lightning Raid boss, right? The Guild Raid Lightning boss, like he uses a buff that increases his attack by 30%. You want to bring somebody that removes buffs. So I usually bring Claire, and you can bring Claire, but you can also bring Juju as well. Both of them will work there. So you can use that in certain PvE content. But for PvP, I definitely think she is a top choice. I think she would be like ranked similar to Fodina, and Fodina is ranked very, very high in PvP. Like she does a lot of like CC, a lot of shocking the targets, and so on and so on. So Juju is similar. She might even have a little bit better than Fodina because she is now able to remove buffs. And I really like her passive. I think her passive, it makes her really, really good. In terms of Juju against Claire, they are similar, but I think Juju is better for 2 reasons. The first reason I already mentioned with the longer range, and the second reason is because I think her passive is better. With Claire, you have a high chance, not a high chance, but you have like a maybe 50% chance with a high skill level to to CC the enemy, knock them back, and especially if they're melee, hopefully they're not able to attack you while they're knocked back, and you're able to pull this off like, every 4 seconds. You're able to get this off multiple times in a fight. However, there are a lot of ranged enemies, there are a lot of melee enemies with ranged skills, and they will still be able to attack and kill you even while they're shackled. Whereas with Juju, uh, I think her passive is just better. Like, immunity to damage when disabled, and disable is everywhere. I think that I think this passive is slightly better than Claire's. You can definitely use both of them together as well. You can use like a range attack formation. There is a formation that I saw before, and it actually deals really nicely with a lot of the um, common arena formations that you see, and it looks something like this. So you want to use not that one. Sorry, it just takes a second to find it. Something like, yeah, probably something like this. And the heroes that you want to use would be Claire and Juju in the back, and maybe something like this. So what? Sorry, not. I forgot the last slot. Yeah, something like this. So the idea here is that Shane is going to jump to the enemy, and you don't even have to use Shane. You can use somebody else that you have as well, like Ming might work, Rudy might work. They all jump towards the enemy, right? So they are fighting the enemy, and the your other, like your two rangers are going to be far in the back, right? So they are not going to be near the action. The action is going to be focused on Rudy and Aquila. If you have enemies that jump towards you, they usually target supports, so Aquila will be taking that damage as well. So your two rangers are like far in the back, and they're able to continuously do damage while your two, like, your tank and your support are taking the brunt of the damage. Your rangers are far away, and they're able to CC and remove buffs and do all the things that they need to do while the fight is happening. If you don't have Aquila, or she's not leveled up well enough, you can also use somebody like Karen. Although you really need to have Karen's defense up and make sure her stats are really well to do something like this. But Aquila will work best in this formation, in my opinion, because she's able to increase the damage of your main DPS, and she's also able to provide invulnerability as well to the enemies that, sorry, to the ally that's taking the most damage. So I think a formation like this would work really well. It would probably work better something like this or with Shane instead. But if you don't have them, you can use anybody that jumps towards the enemy. Even Futina, like something like this would work. So anyway, that's it for me for this video. I hope I've given you some ideas, and I hope I've given you ideas so that you can think about if you really want to pull her or not. She's great for PvP, not so much for PvE. But if you're interested in PvP and you don't have Claire, I highly recommend that you pull her. If you have Claire, there's still a pretty good case for pulling her because like all the things I mentioned. If you're not really interested in PvP, then I would say skip, because whatever she can do, there are other options as well, including Claire. So if you don't have Claire and you really want a buff removal, then fine, you can get her for PvE in the cases that you need that. But anyway, that's my review of her. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have other questions or comments, leave them down below, and I will do my best to get back to you. Take care now. Bye.